Right, welcome back everybody. So local business leaders have urged President Cyril Ramaphosa to deal with corruption to restore confidence in the country as an investment destination. This is more than 1,000 regional and global leaders from politics and business have converged at the World Economic Forum on Africa meeting in Cape Town. The opening of the meeting was overshadowed by protesters angered by the recent spate of violent attacks against women and children. Let's discuss the meeting now. We're joined via Skype by Dr. Iraj Abedian, who is the CEO of Pan-African Investment and Research Services. Good to see you, Iraj. Thanks so much for being with us.
Good morning, and good morning to the viewers.
So yesterday morning, there were reports that Malawi and Rwanda and the DRC had boycotted the event due to the violence against foreign nationals. Later on in the day, the forum dismissed this and confirmed that Malawi and Rwanda had withdrawn, but not due to the attacks. So it's a difficult situation, and I imagine that the impression these attacks are creating for South Africa at this time is very difficult, especially when the president is trying to reassure investors about the country. Talk to us about your views on this.
Absolutely. I mean, given the global connectivity that we have, there is no doubt, and there should be no debate that this type of incidences, horrific murder of women and children, attack on foreigners, on business, especially small businesses, these are the worst kind of publicity that South Africa needs. Any country, in fact, can't afford it. But South Africa, at the point in time where the president tries to reverse 10 years of stagnation in the economy, rising unemployment, the stagnation investment, this is the worst kind of picture that you can put in front of the globe and try to invite investors and business people to come and have confidence in it. It becomes even more complicated, Leanne, and more almost tragic that not so long ago, months ago, 2 months ago, Africa signed the first free trade, continental free trade agreement. And South Africa is one of the key players in promoting intra-trade, intra-investment within the continent. And then, hot on the heel of that, we see incidences of xenophobic against fellow Africans, the burning of businesses, not just in South Africa, also reciprocal activities in Nigeria and elsewhere. These are not the type of thing that we want to put in front of the globe to promote either South Africa or the continent.
So, you know, we look at the perceptions that are being created, and it's quite frightening, actually, when you see from the outside what is happening here in South Africa. And I'd like to just focus on Nigeria for a little bit, because we did see yesterday afternoon, we'd spoken about the other African countries, about Malawi, Rwanda, and the DRC. But let's focus a little bit on Nigeria. And we also saw that the assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari confirmed on Twitter that his government will not attend the World Economic Forum being held in Cape Town this week. And, you know, they're saying it's high risk, it's a volatile area in South Africa, and they are going to be boycotting this. Now, Nigeria and South Africa are always vying for that position of the biggest economies on the continent. And this is something that I don't think the outside world needs to see. And we also don't need our relations between countries on an economic basis, never mind what is happening with regard to the violence, being hampered with. I mean, let's talk to Nigeria now.
I think Nigeria, as you mentioned, Leanne, and it's absolutely correct that whatever happens on the continent, South Africa and Nigeria, and to some extent Egypt, those are the three economies that either make the continent or break the continent. And therefore, to the extent that Nigeria is taking a strong and, in my view, correct position to express disgust and disapproval at the type of governance, at the type of incidences that happens in South Africa, we have to be concerned about it. Also, South Africa, Nigeria is the largest African country where South Africa has invested in terms of MTN, in terms of banking, in terms of all kinds of other sectors. And we have a great deal of mutual interest in promoting investment in each other's country and also jointly investing in the rest of the continent. So it's a very critical access of development and promotion of diversification on the continent. And in that sense, the South African government and South African society needs to take this position that Nigeria has taken very seriously. Now, I cannot overemphasize the importance of Nigeria, South Africa leading the charge for the promotion of investment on the continent. And the last thing that we want is these two big players on the continent not just competing, but confronting each other, destroying value and destroying goodwill on the continent.
Yeah, I mean, you look at MTN. They've shut their businesses down now in Nigeria. ShopRite, same thing, closed their doors due to the violence and, of course, the retaliation that is happening after the looting that we saw on the streets here in South Africa of foreign-owned businesses. The word from the president, our President Cyril Ramaphosa, do you think it's been enough? Because on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum, we were listening to him yesterday, basically saying that he has committed to quelling attacks on foreigners, threatening to cast a cloud over the WEF. Is that enough? I mean, what more leadership do we need to see from the president with regard to these issues?
Leanne, the issue is not making political statements and in a way, phrasing it that is politically correct. The issue is about governance. The issue is, it's 10 years, in fact, 12 years, that we had bouts of xenophobic attacks on businesses. And the South African government has not done sufficient, not nearly sufficient, to put its systems in place so that those who are legitimately and productively involved in business activities are not only not attacked, but supported, encouraged. Instead, we have prevalence of abuse, of trafficking of illegal immigrants, and all kinds of other illicit activities. All of that shows that the institutions of governance, home affairs in particular, and the policing that comes with it, is nowhere close to up to standard. And that's where the focus has to be. The president has to not just make a statement, but to make this a national priority, put a task team within a week or two, and it's not rocket scientists. We've got to put a system in place so that rule of law prevails. Those who want to invest in the country, whether they're from Malawi, Nigeria, Egypt, or Bulgaria, they can come. But those who want to abuse the system, they are here illegally, or they promote illicit trade, they should be stopped, and the law should take its course.
Yeah, I mean, we you know, it's incredible how it's affecting every aspect of our dealings on the continent. I mean, we even saw soccer, you know, a match with Zambia calling off the country's friendly soccer international against South Africa in Lusaka on Saturday. Marches in Zambia to the South African embassy. This is causing major havoc on the continent and big reputational damage to South Africa. Putting that to the side, let's look at what actually happened outside the venue where the World Economic Forum is taking place. Angry protesters, all talking about how women in the country are not safe and the fact that the femicide, the numbers are increasing on a daily basis. Women are not safe. There is so much negativity in the country. What role, again, should the president be playing at the forum right now in leading the integration of African economies and also keeping the citizens of South Africa happy and feeling safe at all times?
Leanne, I think that particular issue, which is horrible, I don't know what adjective to use. This is just totally inhuman and inexplicable. But that is not a presidential duty. The role that the president has to play is to highlight the need for building social trust, the need for dealing with this cultural, ethical, fundamentally it's an ethical, moral issue that our society within its families does not feel safe, within its communities feeling vulnerable, and institutions of governance are not also supporting. Then there is need to be a national moral endeavor, not a project of moral regeneration that is led by morally questionable people. It got to be various institutions and groupings within the society, faith-based institutions, NGOs, really from a whole range of social groupings, become. We got to get together as a nation, led by the president or supported by the president, but not run by the president. It's something that each one of us have to question our role as a citizen and put a plan of action to morally question and regenerate society. Within business, businesses cannot do immoral, unethical things and then expect the society to be moral and ethical. Politicians cannot do the same thing. Religious organizations cannot do the same thing, so on and so forth. So it's a national issue, but the president has to lead the charge.
Let's look at the current economic environment that we as South Africans find ourselves in, and it is tough. We've got unemployment figures that are absolutely frightening, and a lot of people attribute what we're seeing on the streets to the lack of jobs and the unemployment rate and the lack of growth in the economy. And there's desperate investment that is needed here. So this World Economic Forum is an important platform for South Africa and for our president, as well as the ministerial delegation that are there and business leaders as well. But if we look at where we're at right now, and also we take into account the finance minister, Tito Mbowene's finance reform proposal that he put forward that has had not a very warm reception, how are we going to, or how is the president going to sell the country amidst all of this and find the growth that we really do need to turn things around?
Leanne, again, the issue of economic growth is made to become far too politicized, in the sense that they think if they have the khutlas and meetings and so on and talk sweetly and commit sweetly through a statement, the economy will turn around. The economy will turn around only when investment takes place, and investments will take place only when we do the right thing, not just talk about it. We need to learn as a nation that talking does not turn the economy around. Talking is important, but it's not the end game. The Minister of Finance has put a proposal on the floor, on the table. Instead of tearing it apart, we need to get around and say which part of it makes sense, which part of it doesn't make sense, and start implementing it. Not to start having sort of slashing each other in the process, which makes the economy more vulnerable, which makes the investors more jittery, and does the exact opposite of what we want to do. So I think the challenge for us is to stop contestation and confrontation and learn to be collaborative. Yes, argue if things are not right, but do not tear each other apart, because it just doesn't build anything. It destroys. We've had 10 years of going backward. We got to catch up, and we can only catch up if we get around and put an action plan, talk less, more.
Yeah. Let's talk to corruption as well, because business has spoken out about corruption in the country and the prosecution of people implicated in corrupt activities. How much does corruption hinder economic growth, and how much time will this actually be spoken about at the forum?
Look, corruption is like a cancer. How does cancer debilitate human body? The same way corruption debilitates the economic system, the political system, the governance system. There is no doubt about that. So, and corruption is not just in government, corruption is also in the private sector. So we need to, again, not talk about corruption. We know who the corrupts are. We know, for example, Steinhoff has destroyed a whole lot of value. But the people are still walking around town as if they own the place. We know the politicians who have been corrupt. They still talk as if they are leaders. So I think we need to get serious about these issues and not just pussyfoot around the issues and try to put bandage on a massive, deep wound. And we're not going to turn the economy around or have credibility that we are serious about dealing with corruption until some of the big icons of corrupting the society are dealt with in a very fair but visible way. And in economic forums, of investment forums, whether it's on Africa, whether it's in Asia or wherever else, the issue of corruption comes up again and again. Of course, in South Africa, because our economic condition is so dire, unemployment is so high, poverty is so high, we don't have the luxury of having another World Economic Forum to tell us that corruption is bad and do something about it.
Yeah.
We know about it. The President has talked about it. It is time to act against it. And to act against it, but to be seen that the president is acting, not just 2 years later still committing to rooting out corruption.
Yeah.
That is a problem that I think the president has not yet delivered.
Yeah, attracting $100 billion of new investment and moving into the top 50 on the World Bank's ranking for doing business. Chances of that happening, Dr. Abedian, before I let you go?
We can very well do it. We can even get to the top 20 if
Good.
we stop talking and start acting.
Doing.
This
All right.
economy is resourceful. It can get there, but it requires active, action-oriented leadership as opposed to the khotla-oriented.
All right, we leave it there for this morning. Thank you so much for your time. Dr. Iraj Abedian is the CEO of Pan-African Investment and Research Services, talking to us about a rather difficult first day of the World Economic Forum and the challenges facing the president at this point. Let's take a break. Let us bring you the news after this. Stay tuned.